What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers. We have UFC Vegas 55. We have Ketlen Vieira going against Holly Holm. It doesn't get much better than that. We have an 11-fight card this week, and looking through the card, I actually think it's pretty solid. I think there's a lot of betting spots that stick out. Not a ton really stuck out for me last week. So, more fights, can't complain. Next week we have a week off, and then we have a summer full of absolute bangers to look forward to. So I'm here with Weezy. As always, Weezy, you looking forward to this card?
I am, man. It's I'm looking forward to the week off next week even more than this card. But it's a decent card. There should be some opportunities for us to make some money here. So I am looking forward to doing exactly like that. And 11 fights, some good ones, like you said, man. Ponzinibbio Pereira is going to be a banger. The Amedovski Holmes fight promises violence, and then there's should be some spots that stick out. So let's go through all 11 fights and find those spots, Brady.
Yep, as always, looking forward to talk it through with you, Weezy, and the chat. Before we get started, if you guys can please leave a like on the video, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Let's keep growing the channel. Me and Weezy are here every Sunday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time, giving a very early look and in-depth look into the next fight card. So we'll quickly recap last night, and I'll kick us off. Yeah, last night was the least amount of action I've had in a very, very long time. I had 3.75 units on the line. I had 5 bets. So my biggest bet was the Camacho Manuel Torres under 2.5 rounds, minus 180, 1.5 units there. Probably should have went a little bit heavier on that. Started off the night with Maximov Petrosky. Fight doesn't go to decision. Half a unit plus 112. Shout out to Probability, which is a show me and Weezy do Thursday on the MMA Engine. That was all over that one and a bunch of others as well. I'm sure Weezy is going to touch on, but we got that. And then the other one was Ketlen Vieira, 1 unit, minus 175. I'll be honest, I didn't watch the fight. I didn't really want to watch the fight. I was doing something else at the time. It was weird. I was looking on Twitter for the results, and I saw a bunch of people say 30-27 Vieira, 30-27 Ribas. So I don't know who won, but, it feels good winning a close decision there. And then the 2 losses were on the same fight. I had Angela Hill decision only, half a unit plus 105. And then I had Jandiroba by submission plus 350 quarter unit. Jandiroba had so many opportunities to find a sub there. But regardless, winning night. Was not really expecting to have a decent night on this card, but kind of did. 1.21 units. Can't really complain at all on a card where I really hated it from a betting perspective. Coming out with a win is feels pretty good. So Weezy, how was your night? I know you had a really good night last night.
I did. I was up 3.13 units tracked. I cashed a bet on Andre Petrosky. I made that bet a week ago. And before I went to bed after watching the fights last week, I saw Petrosky sitting out there at plus 285. And I was like, there's no way that it's going to go any higher than that. So I put a unit on it, planning to arb out of some of it at a later time. And I wound up waking up and seeing him at plus 370. So I was furious, that I missed out. I could have got him at plus 370, but cashed a 1 unit bet on him. I hedged out by betting 1 unit on Maximov to win in either round 3 or by decision. So that was up plus 1.85 units. I cashed on the probability parlay, the parlay that we give out on probability on Thursday nights on the MMA Engine channel. And that was Camacho Torres fight doesn't go to decision, parlayed with Araujo Lee fight goes to decision. That was minus 111. I bet it for 2.2 units, 1-2. And I had a half unit bet on Tatsuro Taira to win by decision. That one cashed. And I had lost 1 unit on the Maximov hedge bet. I lost 1 unit total on Angela Hill. I had 3/4 of a unit on her money line, a 1/4 unit on the 3rd round knockout prop at plus 3,700. That's it. So I finished up 3.13 units. The ass shaving of the week came through. Manuel Torres shaved the ass of Frank Camacho in the very first round. He did it violently. It was exactly the way I like my ass shavings of the week to end. And then I also gave out a greasy 4-leg parlay on just the tip just before the ass shaving of the week that cashed at plus 987, Brady. So that untracked bet for a half unit got me up another 5 units last night. So wound up making over 8 units last night. But what we're doing right now is we're talking about the past. And the reason we're long-term winners, Brady, is because we're always looking forward. You know, we enjoy the wins when they happen, but we got to leave them in the rearview mirror, whether they're wins or losses, and then get the work that needs to be done for the next week so that we can continue to stack cash tickets like flapjacks.
100%. Like you said, I mean, it's good to talk about it for a little bit. It's good to look in the mirror after a terrible bet and learn from it. But yeah, we're right back to it. We don't have time to sit there and cry about a bet losing. We got to get right into it, and that's what we're going to do here. Let's shout out the chat before we get started. You guys are killing it, as always, in the chat already. Thomas, first one in the chat. I know Thomas hit on some violence last night. We got Brandon, who had a good night as well. Lou Betcha, who had a very good night as well. Monk, hanging out in the chat. Victor, Papa Chuck, Mushroom. We got Tim in the chat. Jason, Roy, PSSA, Rob, the Chosen One. We have Jeff in the chat hanging out. Lou, not going to say your last name, Lou. Maybe one day I will, but shout out to Lou. We got in there. Justin, see if I missed anybody. MMA fan in there as well. We got Philip Spud saying pockets thicker than Parker Porter Weezy. I believe that's a reference from your show, right?
It is. He said that in the chat, and I was just like, I loved that, so I put it on the ticker while I was doing Ask Weezy last week. Pockets thicker than Parker Port, because that's what we're trying to do with this show, with all the other shows that we do, Brady. It's to help people make money gambling on the UFC, and when we're making that money, man, those pockets just keep getting fatter and fatter, baby, and that's the way we like it.
I can't wait to talk about the Porter fight, but we got Rick Sanchez in the chat, Buff on the beat, Charles Carthos, hopefully I pronounced it somewhat right. MMA fan, Angelo, Buffalo on the beat, Gaming Wolf, all you guys, thank you for hanging out. And I say we just get right into it here. So 11 fights to talk about. We'll start with the first fight of the night. And this was kind of a late addition. I want to say it was one of the later fights to get added. And I saw it. I was like, I'm not really looking forward to this fight, but we'll talk about it here. We have Elise Reed going against Sam Hughes. We have Reed, 29 years old, 5'3", with a 61.5-inch reach. Sam Hughes, 29 years old, 5'5", 64-inch reach. Elise Reed, pretty small, going to be at a size disadvantage here. Hughes with a 2-inch height advantage and a 2.5-inch reach advantage as well. So Elise Reed, 1-1 in the UFC. She made her debut against Ciara Eubanks. That was up a weight class. She got finished in the first round, and then she bounced back with an upset win against Corey McKenna. We talked about that quite a bit a couple months back. It was a good performance. Really impressed with Reed. I thought she made a ton of improvements in that fight. Her takedown defense looked much bigger. She looked really strong. Her ground game looked good. Like, I expected McKenna to go out there, get her down to the mat, and I thought once she got her down, she was either getting submitted or not getting back up. But Reed made a very good attempts of getting back up, and she did at times. I also want to say that McKenna did come in there with some very questionable fight IQ, striking with Reed for the majority of the round up until there's like 10 seconds left, and then she gets a takedown. But still, Reed did what she needed to do. Her striking looked really good. She looked really long, really rangy, and she has power as well. So yeah, really looking forward to see Reed, and maybe she continue winning here in this fight here against Sam Hughes, who is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. Made her debut against Tisa Torres in the TKO loss, where it was a weird cut stoppage, where the cut where it was nowhere near her eye. Weird stoppage. I think it was like Torres' first knockout win ever. And then she loses to Luma by decision. She loses to Luana Pinheiro by decision. And then she beats Estelle Nunez by decision in a fight where she was clearly losing the first round and a half. And then once that round and a half mark hit, Hughes started to take over. She won the late second round, and then she ended up dominating the third round as well. So, Hughes coming off an upset win, and same thing with Reed here. Weezy, this is a fight. What do you think about it?
Yeah, it is a fight because we had 10 fights on this card, and the UFC brass said, this one seems a little bit thin. We got to make this a little more fan-friendly of a card. How about we give them Elise Reed versus Sam Hughes in order to get them really foaming at the mouth? So now here we are, Brady. Sam Hughes, it looks like I'm missing for some reason, it looks like her last win didn't update here against Estelle Nunez, but she's got 10 pro fights, about 25 more minutes in the pro cage than Elise Reed. And she's got 2 more UFC fights and, about 50 more minutes in the UFC cage. Sam has finished 4 of her 5 wins. Elise Reed has finished 2 of her 5 wins. Sam been finished in 2 of 4 losses. Elise Reed has been finished in her only loss. Not much in the way of striking numbers to look at here, but, both of these ladies absorb more strikes than they land. Sam in particular, is landing about 4 significant strikes a minute, but absorbing 5.7, and her opponents are throwing a lot more volume, as almost 4 more significant strike attempts per minute than Sam throws. So, but with Elise Reed, we do have a giant hole in her game, and that's the ground game. You know, she really is a white belt and, you know, doesn't have much of a ground game. She's a kickboxer first, and that's where she's going to try to keep the fight. We did see Sam, you know, have a pretty shitty first round against Estela Nunez and fight, you know, kind of a dumb game plan. But she started later in the first round, and in the second round, she started pressuring, which is exactly what she needed to do because she wasn't going to win a distance striking battle against Estela Nunez. And once she started to do that, we did see her have a lot of success. And building off of that win over Estela Nunez here, if Sam Hughes doesn't come in with a complete dumbass game plan like Corey McKenna did against Elise Reed, if Sam Hughes has a triple-digit IQ, and if the people who train her have triple-digit IQs, they're going to tell her what Danny Castillo should have been telling Corey McKenna when he was in her corner: take this girl down. Those are the 4 words that any trainer who's fighting against Elise Reed should be telling their fighter: take this girl down. 1.95% control time for Elise Reed and no takedown attempts, and 39.59% control time allowed for Elise Reed, with 55% takedown defense, being taken down 3.2 times for 15 minutes. So Hughes might be able to win minutes on the feet here. You know, she's a good kickboxer in her own right. She's got some good striking, a decent striking pedigree, you know, but she's got good conditioning and she walks forward. But, you know, if she wants to win this fight, if she wants to get a win check, she's going to need to grapple here, and she's going to need to pressure. And if she does both of those things, she'll be a very live underdog. And frankly, I mean, after, you know, because you know she's going to be taping this fight, and hopefully that, you know, her trainers are telling her, God, look at that dumbass game plan that McKenna came out there with. We're not going to make that same mistake, are we, Sam? We're going to pressure this girl. We're going to put her back up against the cage, and we're going to make her grapple because she's not comfortable there. So I think if Sam comes in with the right game plan, this is her fight to win.
Yeah, this fight's making me sick. I think like this is a borderline 1-800-GAMBLER fight for me. I want nothing to really do with it. But yeah, Sam Hughes, she's gonna have a path to victory here, getting the fight down to the mat. Another thing is, you know, Reed looked like she was slowing down in the McKenna fight, right? Like her gas tank seems very questionable. So if this fight does get extended, and it will, you know, Hughes probably does win that 3rd round. But yeah, early on, you know, Reed's going to have success on the feet here. Sam Hughes is a walking punching bag. But like you said, small cage pressure, takedowns, especially if Hughes can get on top of Reed and go for takedowns consistently, unlike McKenna, who waited 10 seconds left in the round and she got him easily, right? So yeah, I mean, this fight's making me sick. I don't want to bet on this fight. I'm not going to bet on it, but I'll tell you what, I'm not laying chalk on this fight. And we have Reed as the favorite, opening up -150. She's currently -150. Sam Hughes opening up +130, and she is currently +130. I just feel like it should be a closer fight, closely lined fight. I feel like Reed going to have the better striking defense, especially. And I feel like Hughes, if she gets it down to the mat, that's where she's going to have success. So I feel like, you know, it could be a little bit closer, but, you know, I can't argue the line too much. Reed's slight favorite makes sense to me. Any thoughts on the line here, Weezy?
Yeah, I like the underdog money here on Hughes because there is a path to victory for her here. And, you know, Hughes does bring really good cardio. She's a former steeplechase runner in college. You know, that's not fun doing that shit. That's just long distance running. And, you know, that's great conditioning practice for being a fighter. So as far as the fight goes, the fight doesn't go. You know, neither one of these ladies, you know, should be finishing a lot of fights at the UFC level, but when we've got 5 combined wins or losses here, and 3 of them have been inside the distance, and Hughes has finished 4 of her 5 wins. And let's face it, man, she was really close to finishing Estela Nunez there at the end of the 2nd round. She's almost got a 100% finish rate. So I think it could be a sneaky under if you're getting it at, you know, big time plus money. It could be very sneaky. But but I wouldn't be betting the over here. I bet it's juice to the tits. And it's, you probably have to bet 3 units just to win 1. And I just don't like getting in the habit of, making those kind of bets if I can avoid them. So I'm picking Sam Hughes to win here. Both of these ladies have fought some pretty good competition, in the UFC and outside of it. So it's 2 good young prospects. I'm looking forward to this fight.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not really looking forward to the fight, but it's interesting, right? Like, it's an interesting fight stylistically. So the fight goes to decision -270. The fight doesn't go to decision is +190. The over 2.5 is -300. The under 2.5 is +240. So yeah, you're laying a lot of juice here. I know people in the chat are going crazy with saying it should go to decision. It should, but that's laying a lot of chalk on that.
Yeah, it should, and it's about the price at the end of the day. I mean, if you really want to manage that bankroll by, not overpaying for things just because you think that they're going to happen. Really get an idea of what it is that you're putting up and what you're getting back. So, and when you see 3 of 5 combined losses inside the distance, it should give you a little bit of pause and make you really think seriously about laying -300 here.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to F. Carrillo with the dono to the Statistic Duo. Thank you, F. Carrillo, hanging out every week and supporting every week. You are the man there. Let us keep moving on. And Lou saying 100 gambler, and I kind of agree there. I'll move on to the next fight. We have, borderline like another 100 gambler fight. Like, this is a tough fight to bet on. We have Chase Hooper going against Felipe Colares. We have Chase Hooper is 22 years old, 6'1", with a 74-inch reach. Colares, she is 28 years old, 5'8", with a 69-inch reach. So Hooper is going to be 6 years younger. He's going to have a massive 5-inch height advantage and a massive 5-inch reach advantage as well. Chase Hooper is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Daniel Tamor, won that fight by first-round knockout, lost a decision to Alex Caceres, submitted slippery Pete Parrott in that 3rd round, and then lost a decision to Steven Peterson. As far as Felipe Colares, she is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Fought Geraldo de Freitas, lost that fight by decision, won a decision against Domingo Pilarte, lost a decision against Montel Jackson, won a decision against Luke Sanders, and then lost a decision to Chris Gutierrez. Yeah, just a weird, interesting fight here. We have a very young Chase Hooper who is just very green. I just don't think he's UFC caliber at the moment. And then we have a guy in Colares who has not really shown much outside of like toughness, and he's very tough, and that goes a long way. But this is just a really weird fight to me. Weezy, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, what I watched, I didn't get a chance to watch enough tape on any of these fights, frankly. But what I did watch was Felipe Colares against Domingo Pilarte. And, and Hooper and Pilarte got a lot in common. They're both, long dudes. They're both grapplers first. They're not great with the striking, but they use their length to kind of set up their entries on their takedowns. And, Hooper, 4 of 22 on his takedown attempts, and Pilarte's kind of the same thing. But what Colares did in that fight was, kind of impressive. His distance striking was good. It was better than Domingo's. And he closed the distance and won a lot of minutes on the cage and on the ground. And when he did get into the scramble positions with Pilarte, he stayed safe. So, I kind of feel like Colares could have the same kind of performance here against Hooper, avoid being taken down by Hooper, put Hooper up against the cage because he's so young. He hasn't really filled out yet. He's not strong. Colares should be the stronger guy here, should be the better cage grappler, and he should have the better distance striking. And he's tough as nails, And we see that Colares has finished 50% of his wins by sub, and Chase Hooper's finished 50% of his wins by sub. So both of these guys have, half of their pro wins by submission and a couple wins by knockout as well. An 80% finish rate for Hooper, 70% finish rate for Colares, and neither one of these guys has ever been finished. So I'm already looking at the over for this particular fight because Colares has got good submission defense, and Chase Hooper is really tough, and he's a good grappler too. So I think that this one probably goes the full 15. Chase Hooper's striking metrics actually look like he's a decent striker, which is kind of funny, because he's landing more than he absorbs. He throws about 2.4 more significant strike attempts than he absorbs. 46% striking accuracy isn't bad, but 36.5% striking defense. Dude's blocking punches with his face. It's not good. and he's been knocked down twice in 5 fights. So, yeah, Chase Hooper's not good on the feet. I think Colares will be the much better striker here. But Colares has been knocked down twice as well in 5 fights, so it's not like he's particularly great. But I don't really see either one of these guys landing knockdowns or getting a lot done on the feet here. Colares' fights thus far in the UFC have taken place in control time positions between 62 and 63% of the time. And for Hooper, it's about 35% of the time. So, both of these guys are grapplers first, but, neither one of these guys is getting takedowns at an impressive rate. 22% for Colares, 18% for Hooper. They both have takedown defense that's sitting at 50% or below. Both guys are getting out-controlled by their opponents. Neither one of these guys is beating people in the UFC that have winning records, and they're not even really losing the guys that are that good. I mean, Colares has way better losses overall with Chris Gutierrez and Montel Jackson and DeFreitas in comparison to Steven Peterson and Caceres for Hooper. And Hooper's only wins are against the Bad Tamer and Slippery Pete Barrett. So, I think Colares, I think this is his fight to win. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He should be able to deal with whatever Chase Hooper is bringing on the ground. He's older. He's more experienced. He's fought the better brand of UFC competition thus far, and his striking is better. So, I like Colares to win this fight, but, am I going to go out there and lay 3 units on Felipe Colares and then have to look myself in the mirror when this guy Hooper, locks up a leg in the 3rd round? So I don't know, man. This feels like a 1-800 gambler fight. Although, from the stats that we have, Brady, you got to kind of look at fight goes to decision here. 5 combined pro losses. Neither one of these guys has ever been finished. And they're both kind of strong where the other one is strong. So I see it going to the distance. But other than that, man, I don't see my money getting anywhere near this fight.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Somebody said it in the chat, if I could find the comment, but somebody said, there it is. He said, "Wish they gave us a better fighter to fade Chase." That's what I'm looking for. Like, I bet Steven Peterson against Chase Hooper, and I'll bet pretty much anybody in the division against Chase Hooper. And I think, Colares should win this fight. It's just I'm not impressed with either guy. We talked about it before the show. Like, Hooper's so young. He's 22 years old. He's training with really good guys. Like, could he make some improvements? Yeah. I mean, he can't get any worse, right? So, I think it's a very winnable fight for Colares, but just laying chalk on Colares just doesn't really intrigue me all that much. We see that Colares is a favorite. He opened up minus 110 actually as a pick'em. He's now minus 160. And then Chase Hooper opened up minus 110. He's now plus 140. Yeah, makes sense. For Colares, a slight favorite. I just don't know if my money's going to touch this fight. But yeah, like you said, Weezy, both guys very durable. Both guys, BJJ Black, like Colares is one of the most durable guys in the UFC. This guy can take a beating. Remember the beating he took against Montel Jackson? Like that was impressive, very impressive. So you're not knocking him out. And then Chase Hooper has shown some great durability in his own right. Both guys, very good submission defense. So yeah, I think the over is very good and it's priced good as well. The over 2.5 minus 120. The under 2.5 minus 110. The fight goes to decision is plus money right now, plus 100.
Wow.
And the fight doesn't go as minus 140. So
I like that.
It
but we can't get that right. I mean, that's 5 dimes.
5 dimes.
Okay. Is there a time prop out on Bet Online for this fight yet?
There's actually not.
Okay. I'm going to be looking for that over if it's plus money, or the fight goes. Yeah. I could see betting that, but other than that, God, yeah, they never make it easy on us. Wouldn't you just love to see like Hooper get like a stud, like Montel Jackson? And you can be like, man, Montel's going to wax this dude's ass. This is going to be ugly, but they never make it that easy. And even if they did, you'd be paying like minus 1,500 for Montel. So yeah, man, that's it is what it is. Let's move on to this next fight.
Yeah, I mean they're trying to maybe build Hooper. I mean, Montel Jackson versus Chase Hooper. My goodness, that'd be bad. But I say we do move on to the next fight, and we have should be a fun one here. We have Jonathan Martinez going against Vince Morales. We have Martinez, 20 years old, 5'7", the 70-inch reach. Morales, 31 years old, 5'7", with a 70-inch reach. It's going to be Martinez, 3 years younger. Martinez with a 1-inch height advantage, same reach there. Martinez 4-1 in his last 5 fights, knockout win over Frankie Saenz, a decision win against Thomas Almeida, a knockout loss to Davy Grant, a decision win against Lavishvili, a decision win against Alejandro Perez. As far as Morales, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, decision win against Ayman Zahabi, decision loss to Benito Lopez, a knockout loss to Chris Gutierrez, a decision win against Drake Rodriguez, and a knockout win, his first UFC knockout against Luis Smolka. So yeah, Weezy, striker versus striker here. I'd be shocked if anyone went to the wrestling. And it's funny to say because Morales, we always talk about that wrestling background he has. I think it was like a state champion. Does not use it at all, so I'm not expecting him to do so here. But yeah, striker versus striker should be a fun matchup here.
It should, for sure. I mean, we got a nice little tail of the tape advantage here for Martinez being 3 years younger and having an inch of height and being a southpaw and training out of probably the better camp here in Factory X. He's got 3 more pro fights, about 90 more minutes in the pro cage, and about a year and a half more as a pro. And then also 2 more UFC level fights and about 50 more minutes in the UFC cage. So nice tail of the tape advantage here for Martinez. Nice experience advantage. Morales has been the better finisher, finishing his pro wins at 73%, while for Martinez, it's 60%. And Morales has been finished in 3 of 5 losses. And for Martinez, it's 1 of 4 losses. So, Martinez here has finished 2 of his 6 UFC wins. And for Morales, it's 1 of his 3 UFC wins. And both of these guys have been finished. Morales in 2 of 4 UFC losses and Martinez in 1 of 3. So when we look at the striking stats, and, when we look at the striking and the grappling stats are telling us, go look at the striking stats because these guys don't grapple offensively a lot, right? So Martinez landing about 0.7 more significant strikes per minute than he absorbs, throws a little more volume than his opponents do. He's landed 5 knockdowns in 9 fights, so he's showing good power. And he's also been knocked down 4 times in 9 fights, so he's a little bit chinny. Morales also lands more than he absorbs, about 0.4 more significant strikes per minute than he absorbs, but he's throwing 2 more significant strike attempts per minute than his opponents do. He's less accurate, but just as powerful, having 3 knockdowns in 7 fights, and he's been knocked down twice in 7 fights. So, the numbers are pretty similar here, but, you showed just a little bit more accurate and a little more defensively responsible for Martinez, a little more volume for Morales, and both of these guys have been knocked down a couple of times. So it's pretty close on the feet. Morales, former Idaho state champion in high school wrestling, I believe. But yeah, 4 takedown attempts in 7 fights. So you tell me if he's comfortable using his wrestling. 1.57% control time for and 6.02% control time against. And that's actually very impressive here because Morales has been taken down 7 times, but it looks like he's been controlled less than 5 minutes on those 7 takedowns and on those 14 takedown attempts. So Morales might be fairly easy to take down as he's only showing 50% takedown defense, but he's got an excellent get-up game. He does know how to not waste time playing off his back. Martinez has gotten 3 takedowns in 8 attempts. That's 0.37 takedowns per 15 minutes. He is pretty efficient on the ground here. Check this out. Martinez has 8 takedown attempts, but his opponents have 26, yet he's out-controlling his opponents 12.63% to 8.8%. So 73% takedown defense, out-controlling his opponents despite the fact his opponents are attempting more than 3 takedowns for every 1 that Jonathan Martinez attempts. So I think Martinez is more efficient on the ground here. He's more likely to be the one to go to the wrestling and to win minutes with the wrestling. But in reality, Brady, I think that this is going to be a striking match 85 to 90% of the time. And I think that's a fairly safe estimate here. It's Morales who has fought the better brand of competition overall. The wins are very close for both fighters, but it's Morales who's lost to the much better competition here, as he's lost to guys who have a 3.5 and a 1.5 loss record, while for Martinez, he's losing to people with losing records, 2.33 wins and 5 losses. So, yeah, very interesting here. It's a close fight. But with Martinez, we see more of a kickboxer, and with Morales, we see more of a wrestle boxer. I take the kickboxer over the boxer pretty much every time. And I think that since Martinez is a little bit bigger, a little bit younger, a little more experienced, and the wins that both of these guys have had in the UFC are fairly close in level, that I'm going to be leaning Jonathan Martinez here.
Yep, I think I'm leaning that same way. But yeah, the price is he's gotten smashed the last couple hours here. So he opened up minus 150, went down to minus 175. He's currently minus 205 is Martinez. Vince Morales opened up plus 130. He's currently plus 175. So yeah, if you like Martinez, probably should have got him earlier today. I don't really want to lay minus 2. Like, it's going to be a competitive fight, right? But yeah, you obviously got to favor Martinez on the feet. I think he has more tools, the leg kicks. Somebody in the chat said that Martinez is a Walmart version of Chris Gutierrez. I like that analogy there. So yeah, I think yeah, it's a good spot for me. Minus 205. Any thoughts on that?
Minus 275 for what?
Minus 205 on Jonathan Martinez.
Yeah, that's too much, man. It's too much. I like Martinez. I like him to win this fight. But yeah, I think he could win inside the distance. I think he could win by a decision. I think Morales probably is only winning by decision here, but if he lands a shot like he did on Smoka, I guess he's live too. But yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not laying minus 205 on this fight. Not for Jonathan Martinez, but I do think he gets the job done here.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Jonathan Martinez in his fight against Alejandro Perez closed around minus 225. That fight was a little more competitive than I'd like it to be. Like, Martinez won the majority of that fight, but it was Perez with those big moments. Remember, he dropped Martinez at the end of the first round. Yeah, I think Martinez wins, but minus 205. It's just getting too wide. Over under set at 2.5 rounds. Over 2.5 minus 205. Under 2.5 plus 165. The fight goes decision minus 175. The fight doesn't go plus 135. No strong lean for me one way or another. How about you?
With 7 combined losses. And that's just in the UFC. 3 of them have been inside the distance. So might be leaning to a fight doesn't go here. But, I'd probably have to be getting some better plus money than what they're already giving us. So, yeah, it feels like a stay away.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stay away as well. But it should be a fun fight to watch, though.
Absolutely.
We will keep moving on to another fun fight. We have Omar Morales going against Uros Medic. With Morales, 36 years old, 5'11" with a 73-inch reach. Medic, 29 years old, 6'1" with a 71-inch reach. It's going to be Medic that is going to be 7 years younger. He's going to have a 2-inch height advantage, but he's going to be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Morales is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Dong Hyung Ma. Decision win against Gabriel Benitez. A decision loss to Giga Chikadze. A decision win against Shane Young. And then a submission loss to Jonathan Pierce. As far as Medic, he is 4-1. In his last 5 fights, had that knockout win on the Contender Series against Mikey Gonzalez in the first round, and then he knocks out Alon Cruz in the first round, and then he gets submitted against Jailton Turner in the first round. Both these guys fought on the same card their last time out. I was actually at that card, and both of these guys got finished. So yeah, this is one of those fighters where you have a kill or be killed fighter in Medic, who this guy has 8 fights. He's never seen a decision. He's never seen the third round. And he's only been to the second round one time. In that fight in the second round, he did finish in the first 50 seconds. So I like those fights. I like betting on those fights. And we saw one last night. We saw with Manuel Torres. This was a guy in Torres that went to decision only one time in like 14 fights. And these guys are fun to watch. Like, Medic goes out there offensively. He is very exciting, very dangerous. And he showed it off his last couple fights. But there's a huge hole in his game. You go back and watch his fights from Alaska FC. And like, these guys are just taking him down easily, no resistance whatsoever. And I'm like, man, I want to fade this guy so bad. And against Jailton Turner, I was like, I want to fade him, but I don't know if Turner's the guy to do it. He was the guy to do it, but I just want somebody to go out there and take down Medic, exploit that ground game. And you have a guy in Morales who's a black belt in BJJ. But the problem with Morales is he just does not use his wrestling as much as he really should. Like, if Morales goes in here, gets his fight down to the mat, I think he subs him. but I kind of have a feeling that Morales is just going to stand and bang like he has been doing. So I feel like the path to victory is 100% there for Morales. But as we know, Weezy, the path to victory can be there all we want. But if they don't use that path to victory, it doesn't really mean anything. So should be a fun fight, though. Should be fireworks. Any thoughts on this fight, Weezy?
Yeah, great fight. I mean, look at that tail of the tape. 7 years younger for Medic, 2 inches taller. And then somehow Morales has got a 2-inch reach advantage. I mean, I hate that, dude. I hate that because there's no way that he's got a reach advantage over Uros Medic. I mean, anybody who's ever watched either of these guys fight, I mean, Morales is just the area between those gigantic lats of his that makes it look like he's got this super long reach, but he doesn't. It's going to be Medic who's the longer striker here. But Morales, a lot more experience, 60 more minutes in the pro cage, 5 more fights, 3 more UFC level fights, and almost 70 more minutes in the UFC cage. So he's more experienced. But like you mentioned, Medic is a killer be killed fighter. 100% finish rate in his 7 wins, 100% finish rate against in his only loss, while Morales has finished about 63% of his 11 wins inside the distance, and he's been finished by submission in 1 of his 2 losses. So when we look at the striking numbers here, we've got a better sample size with Morales here, and he's landing about 0.55 more significant strikes per minute than his opponents do, and he's throwing a little more volume as well. 38% striking accuracy isn't great, but the power is there. He's landed 2 knockdowns in 6 fights, 0.4 knockdowns per 15 minutes, and he's been knocked down once, but showing 63.5% striking defense is really good, and he's been knocked down 0.2 times per 15 minutes. Medic is putting up like these video game numbers, and I think a lot of it is because of the Alen Cruz fight where he landed about 50 unanswered strikes before Mark Smith stopped the fight. So he's landing 7 more significant strike attempts or significant strikes per minute than he absorbs. He's throwing about 6 more significant strike attempts per minute, 75% striking accuracy, landing a knockdown on 3.6% of the significant strikes that he lands. That's 5.71 knockdowns per 15 minutes, and he's never been knocked down. But Morales, 6 fights, only 3 takedown attempts. He's gotten all 3 of them, and he's gotten 12% control time out of 74. So that's about 8 minutes of control time on those 3 takedowns. So if he decides to go to the wrestling like Jailton Turner did in the first round against him, we could see Morales have a lot of success here, in my opinion. But only 3 takedown attempts. Now, he's fought Giga Chikadze. Just in that fight, if he had any fight IQ, he should have attempted 10 takedowns, right? Just in one fight against Giga Chikadze. But he, for some reason, shot less than 3 takedowns in that fight, and there's really no reason for it. So is he going to be smart enough to realize that he shouldn't stand up here with Medic because you're just doing the guy a favor? Yeah. Don't know. I don't know if this guy's any good. I don't know if his fight IQ is there. Sanford MMA, you'd think that he'd come in with a good game plan here, but look, Morales is a 36-year-old man. He's getting up there. He's going to be smaller. He's going to be the better grappler, and he's fought the better brand of UFC competition thus far because he's fighting much more experienced guys. And having names like Jonathan Pierce and Giga Chikadze and Gabriel Benitez on your resume is a lot more impressive than Mikey Gonzalez, Alen Cruz, and then a loss to Jailton Turner in round 1. So, if Morales fights like a veteran with a game plan and realizes what the strengths and weaknesses of his opponent are, he should be able to win this fight. But Morales just doesn't show, if you look at the stats on this guy, he doesn't show a well-rounded mixed martial arts game, and he doesn't seem to understand when he needs to go to the grappling. And I think that that's going to be really important for him in this fight, because if he just wants to go out there with his balls in a wheelbarrow and swing with Medic, I got my money on Medic.
Especially as a dog too, right?
Yeah, especially as a dog. I'll take that plus money on this dude. He's longer, he hits harder, and he's just mean. And then when he does hurt you, he goes into finish. He's not trying to let you back up and ease into the knockout, let the knockout come. No, man, he's going for it, and fighting those kind of guys on their terms is a huge fucking mistake, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you broke it down perfectly. If Omar Morales has any fight IQ, like if he watched any tape at all, if they have any type of game plan, go in here, take down Eros. Like he's getting taken down so easy by these Alaska FC guys, like zero resistance, zero ground game. Get this guy down, get him tired, wear him out like Jalen Turner did, and then submit him. I mean, you're a black belt in BJJ, but yeah, I just can't trust him. Like, especially as a favorite. If I'm betting Omar Morales at -152, I expect him to go out there and go for takedowns early and often. But I have a feeling that's just not going to happen. I feel like he's going to stand and bang with the guy, Weezy, and I just can't lay -150 on a guy in Morales. And people are talking about in the chat where against Giga Chikadze, that's where he should have implemented that game plan, but it was just nowhere to be found. So can we trust him to do it here? I can't, and I can't lay chalk on him as well. But I think there's a much better way to play this fight than just pick a money line, and that's going to be the violence. -170, fight doesn't go, fight goes +130, under 2.5 -125, the over 2.5 -105. You're getting a guy in Medic who not only has he's never been to decision, not only has he never been over 2.5, not only has he never been over 1.5, he's only been to the second round one time. And you can see by the way he fights, he's one of those guys. And I'm going to take that shot every time. I'm going to take the under 2.5. I'm going to take the fight doesn't go. Medic is a killer be killed fighter, and he's going to be going out there. He's going to be very dangerous. I think Morales, if he gets the fight down to the mat, I think the sub is very live. Morales has a lot of subs on his record, actually. But if he does not, and if they do stand and bang, someone's going to get knocked out here. So I think the under 2.5 at -125 is a very, very solid look. And the fight doesn't go to decision, although I don't have access to it on 5 dimes. Again, is a very solid look because you're getting a guy in Medic who, this guy does not go to decision. He does not go to third rounds. He does not get extended. And we saw he got a little extended in the Turner fight. He was looking tired. He was looking like really tired, just late first round, just a little bit of grappling. He was looking tired. And once he met some resistance, it looked like he wanted out of there as well. So, yeah, I think I'm going to pick Morales to win just because I feel like he has a lot more paths to victory. He has fought the better competition by a mile. He has seen a third round, a decision. He's going to have the better cardio as well. If it does get extended, you got to believe. And then he has that clear as day path to victory. But I'm not laying chalk on the guy. If anything, it's that under 2.5 for me, Weezy.
Yeah, I already bet the under 2.5 for 1.25 units here. And it's an auto bet. When you've got a guy that's never even been over 1.5 rounds in his entire career, and they're giving you, and you're not like paying -300, it's an auto bet. So I'm on that. I love killer be killed fighters. They're fun to watch and they're fun to bet on. And I think that somebody's going to get served in this spot, and it'll probably happen under 1.5 rounds. Yeah, I can't count on Omar Morales' fight IQ. And usually when you haven't seen them display good fight IQ, and then now you look and they're already 36 years old, that's usually not the time to start looking for these guys to get smart. If they, you can see people learn from their mistakes in their 20s, but in their late 30s, usually you're already the fighter that you are at that point. And if Morales doesn't want to use his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, I think he's going to be in a very close fight here, and he's going to be fielding some shots with some really nasty intentions from Earls here.
Yep, and one thing I've learned, I think it's really important. Like you can watch tape, you could look into the fight, and you can see a path to victory for Morales, and it's there. It's so obvious that it's there, but it's obvious to everybody, And then you see Morales go out there, and he's not going to shoot takedowns, and you just can't trust these guys with bad fight IQ to go out there and fight to a smart game plan. And I just cannot trust Morales, and then especially laying chalk on him as well.
Yeah, I agree, man. And Medic is just, he's not technical like Giga, but I mean, he just absolutely goes for it.
Yeah, he's a wild
and I mean, sometimes that's even worse, because at least with the technical guy, that they're not going to, overextend and stuff like that. But Medic is trying to punt your head, I mean, he's really trying to hurt you. So it's going to be a fun fight. And I think that whatever happens, it's ending inside the distance.
Yep. I'm right there with you. Should be a fun fight. And we will keep moving on to the next fight, which is another fun fight. We have Polyana Viana going against Tabatha Ricci. We have Viana, 29 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. Tabatha Ricci, 27 years old, 5'1" with a 61-inch reach. It's going to be Viana, who's going to be 2 years older, but she's going to have a 4-inch height advantage and a massive 6-inch reach advantage. Viana is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. Decision loss to J.J. Aldrich. Decision loss to Hannah Cifers. Submission loss to Veronica Macedo. And then she bounces back with back-to-back submission wins over Emily Quitmeyer and Mallory Martin. As far as Tabatha Ricci, she did make her debut against one Manon Fiorot, up a weight class, got knocked out, big mismatch there. But she does go back down to her normal weight class her next fight, and then beats Maria Oliveira by decision. In that fight, she showed pretty good wrestling, really good fight IQ. The striking is definitely a work in progress, but came in there with a good game plan, and she did what she needed to do against Oliveira. Interesting fight here. I tweeted out earlier today. It was a beautiful sunny day. I look out, beautiful sunny day, and I'm sitting inside just taping Polyana Viana versus Hannah Cifers, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? But I feel like it's a good spot for Ricci here. I really do. I feel like Ricci will be the one to get on top here. Polyana Viana has like a 40% takedown defense. And of course, Ricci has 0% takedown defense, but that was because Manon Fiorot did take her down. But yeah, Viana, I guess her problem is just struggling to get it down to the mat. Like when she's winning, it's off her back. She won against Mallory Martin, off her back. Martin took her down. Same thing with Whitmire. Whitmire got her down, and she won off her back there. You see her pulling guard in a lot of fights as well. Against Hannah Cifers, pulled guard a ton. Against J.J. Aldrich, pulled guard a ton. And even in those fights, it didn't really work out. Cifers and Aldrich were able to stay safe on top. And like Tabatha Ricci, she is a black belt in BJJ. She was Mackenzie Dern's training partner for a while. I'm not sure if she still is, but I've saw she's trained with like Jessica Andrade. Like she's trained with really good fighters, and again, black belt, very good grappler. That's her thing. I just find it hard to believe that Viana is going to go out here and get an armbar from guard against Tabatha Ricci. I think that's her path to victory. And of course, it's women's MMA. It is lowish level, and it could happen. But this is not Emily Whitmire. It's not Mallory Martin. It's not. I'm not even sure who else she's beat. But I think Tabatha Ricci can get this fight down to the mat, stay safe on top, and kind of grind out a decision here. But yeah, if Viana wins, it's going to be a submission. It's going to be off her back. That's literally the only way she wins. She has a 100% finish rate, the majority of those coming by submission. And you can see why. That's how she fights. She doesn't really fight to win minutes. She's content to be off her back. And, that's not going to always work at this level. And I don't think it works here. So I like Tabatha Ricci. I like her a lot. Probably going to better, but some weird stuff going on with the line movement here. So Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight here?
Yeah, so I like the tail of the tape for Polyana here. She's a couple years older and more experienced, 4 more inches of height, a 6-inch reach advantage. You got to love all that. And then 9 more professional fights than Tabatha Ricci, about 35 more minutes in the pro cage, although the length of their career is the same. So it's been Polyana Viana who's been twice as active as a fighter as a pro as well. 4 more UFC level fights, 17 minutes in the UFC cage. And it's Viana who's the better finisher and more durable, as Viana has finished all 12 of her pro wins inside the distance, 8 by submission, 4 by knockout. And she's only been finished in 1 of 4 losses, while Tabatha has finished 3 of her 6 losses or wins inside the distance and has been knocked out in her only loss. But that was up a weight class against Manon on short notice. I just basically throw that fight out. When we look at the striking numbers in the UFC here, Tabatha, they look terrible because she fought Manon Fiorot, but she did a good job against Maria Oliveira. And Viana is actually landing more significant strikes per minute than she absorbs by 0.7, and she's throwing about 2 more significant strike attempts per minute than Ricci. 42% striking accuracy, 55% striking defense. Both of these ladies have been knocked down once. It's in 1 fight for 2 fights and for Ricci, and in 6 fights for Viana. So when we look at the grappling numbers, Tabatha's done a great job. 28.8% control time for, only 3% control time against. And Viana will give up control time. When Mallory Martin went to go take her down, she just was like, thank you, pulled guard and got that arm bar. So she doesn't mind being on her back. She's going to work for submissions. But I also think that if this fight stays standing, Polyana's going to look pretty good on the feet in comparison to Tabatha, who's okay. I mean, they're both okay, I guess. But the thing that everyone seems to say is that, Viana is sub or bust, and grappling a black belt like Ricci, who's probably not going to give up a submission, that is probably Tabatha that has the better chance to win minutes here. And she's getting more takedowns per 15 minutes. She's out controlling her opponents at like almost a 10-to-1 ratio, while Polyana Viana is getting out controlled at like a 4-to-1 ratio. So as long as Tabatha can get this fight to the ground, win minutes there, and stay safe from submissions, she should be able to win this fight. But if it stays standing, I think it's kind of like flip a coin. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I'd favor Viana, especially with that reach advantage. Like, what is it? A 6-inch reach advantage. And like Viana's striking has actually improved a lot throughout the years, but
it's okay.
It'd be a big mistake for Ricci to strike with her, I think, though. So I think Ricci's going to go for takedowns. But yeah, if they're striking, I favor Viana probably.
Yeah, I kind of felt like the same way. But, Tabatha's good with their pressure, and she should fight a game plan that kind of accentuates her positives here, and that's the grappling. And, when you're at a 6-inch reach disadvantage, you just don't want to stand in front of your opponent because they're going to be able to hit you when you can't hit them. So I see Tabatha pressuring, working her up against the cage, and maybe winning some minutes on the ground here and probably cruising to a decision. But, yeah, it's a good fight. It's an interesting fight. Troiano had a pretty interesting comment in there earlier about this being some kind of a sponsored by Jergens lotion or something like that. And I'm on board with that. These are two beautiful young ladies and good competitors. It's a good fight, man.
Trust me, I did a ton of Instagram study for this one, so I was able to find out a lot of things about these two. I was on there for a little too long, but yeah, I feel like if you like Viana 100% finish rate in all of her wins. Like if she's going to win, it's going to probably be by submission. It's probably going to be off her back. Viana inside the distance plus 280. I'm actually curious to see what the submission prop is for Viana. And by the way, Viana did knock out Amanda Hebos before. Yeah. Fun fact. But yeah, I think sub or bust for Viana. And then as far as Ricci, I think she could sub her too, honestly. Like Ricci's a very good grappler. She almost got Oliveira out of there. And we did see Viana get submitted by Veronica Macedo out of nowhere. So even like the fight ends by submission would be something that kind of intrigued me. But yeah, we talked about it before the show, Weezy. The under 2.5 opened at plus 250. And it is down to plus 160. And yeah, I think that's more so because Viana, she's a finisher. And yeah, I don't know if Ricci finishes Viana. I'm kind of leaning more decision, but yeah, it's been getting smashed all week.
Yeah, it's interesting because Viana's got that 100% finish rate. Some people were probably like, man, plus 250? I'll take a shot at that. It's a strawweight fight, and 30% of strawweight fights finish inside the distance. So just to get a fight doesn't go to decision, you should be getting a little bit better than plus 200 just to be on point with what the divisional finish rate is. So, but people saw plus 250 and they decided they have to have a part of that. I would probably rather bet the over now where it is.
Yeah. So, yeah, you might have to call the orderlies, but I like Ricci here. I'm probably going to bet her. It's going to be a small bet, but the line just does not make sense. I think she's going to win minutes on top. I don't see her going out there and testing or striking. I think she'll get zero resistance from the takedown defense of Viana. And if Hannah Cyphers can stay safe on top, if JJ Aldridge can stay safe on top, I think a black belt and Tabatha Ricci can stay safe on top. So, yep, I'm going to do it. I'm going to bet Ricci, just kind of waiting to see where the line goes. Looks like money's coming in on Viana as we speak. Right now, looks like Viana opened up plus 170, now minus 104. And then Ricci opened up minus 200. She's minus 116. So I'm going to sit back and wait. I'm not in a hurry to bet Tabatha Ricci here. But yeah, probably going to be betting her at some point. So wish me luck.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad look, because Ricci opened at minus 200. And where is she at right now?
Like minus 115, minus 116.
Yeah, see, I mean, like the line moved quite a bit, So, and the bookies aren't just flipping a coin on where to open her. They're opening her there at minus 200 because they've got some analytics to say that she wins this fight. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, man. I don't know if I'm going to be betting this one though.
Yeah, I think best move's probably to stay away, but I just really like Ricci in this spot. And I think Viana is sub or bust, but yeah, we'll see. It should be a good one. Move on to the next fight, and this could potentially be the lowest level fight on the entire card. We have Joseph Holmes going against Alen, and Amedovski making his big return after like a 3-year layoff. This fight makes no sense. Joseph Holmes, 26 years old, 6'4", with an 80-inch reach. Amedovski, 34 years old, 5'10", with a 74-inch reach. Holmes is going to be 8 years younger. He's going to have a 6-inch height advantage and a 6-inch reach advantage as well. Joseph Holmes is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He had that knockout win against Jonathan Patty to get him into the UFC, and then made his debut against Jamie Pickett. He was actually a favorite in that fight, and then he ended up losing that fight by a very greasy decision. As far as Amedovski, made his debut against Krzysztof Jotko. Just got dominated in that entire fight. Jotko didn't finish him, but Jotko was able to take him down in each round and just kind of control him there. And then he went out there against John Phillips, and they stand and banged for 15 seconds, and then he got caught right away. This is a weird fight. Alen Amedovski, we have not seen him in 3 years. He's now 34 years old. I go back and watch tape on this guy, and this guy has just about as bad level competition as Uros Medic. I mean, the guys that he's beating, very questionable. And then there's not a lot of tape on the guy as well. And the tape that there is, you can barely see anything on it. And on top of that, it's from a while, 2015, just not a ton of information on Amedovski. And what we do see of him is in that Jotko fight, he does not look good in terms of the takedown defense, the ground game. So yeah, just a lot of question marks for me. And then Joseph Holmes is a guy that I'm not that impressed with, but what I am impressed with is that guy's size, 6-inch height advantage, 6-inch reach advantage, and then also his ground game. He's a brown belt in BJJ, and that's kind of where I think Joseph Holmes is going to get this fight down to the mat here. And I feel like, Amedovski is probably going to have opportunities early to maybe knock out Joseph Holmes, but I think if Holmes gets this fight down to the mat, he's going to have a big advantage. So yeah, weird fight, low-level fight, probably even a 1-800 gambler fight, but I got to go with the much younger Holmes here. But weird fight here.
Yeah, Holmes 8 years younger, 6 inches taller, 6-inch reach advantage. And despite the fact that he's 8 years younger than Amedovski, he's got almost as many fights and 17 more minutes in the pro cage than Amedovski. Despite the fact that Amedovski 9.5-year career and only 10 fights. You want to talk about inactive? While Holmes is fighting 3 times a year. So look, this thing is Holmes minus 200, and I laughed when I saw that. Because I'm like, you don't just fade a bad fighter with a bad fighter. And with Holmes, we got a guy that's got less than 10 pro fights. This is his second UFC fight. He lost the first one, against Pickett, and Pickett's marginal, in terms of a UFC middleweight. Both of these guys have 100% finish rates in their wins, and neither one of these guys is Amedovski has been finished once, but Holmes has never been finished. So probably a good violent spot, 15 combined wins, all of them inside the distance. But I mean, laying minus 200 on Joseph Holmes is just terrifying to me. I mean, those are bad long-term decisions because, he absolutely should win this fight. But how do you know where Amedovski is at this point in his career? He's 34 years old. He could have gotten better, I guess, but I don't know what the Macedonian regional scene is like. From what I saw, they're still using Super 8 cameras, and I think that my 5th grade talent show was actually shot on a better camera than what most of Amedovski's fights were shot on in the 21st century. So, oh man, this is bad. How about that 37% striking defense for Amedovski? And you're like, wow, that's really bad. And then you look up to the striking accuracy and you see 28.57. I mean, this guy couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. He blocks punches with his face. He stood and banged voluntarily with John Phillips, the guy who up until that fight had been controlled for 99% of his UFC career. Yikes, Brady. That 1-800 gambler is absolutely up there for a reason. I won't be laying minus 200 on Joe Holmes. I won't be parlaying him. That being said, I fully expect him to win this fight and to do it inside the distance. Fight doesn't go to decision is probably the way I'm going to try to play this fight.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, fight doesn't go is the way to look. Both guys 100% finish rate, and kind of how I see the fight going down. I think Alen Amedovski, I just don't know why he's in the UFC, honestly, in the 3-year layoff thing. And you take a look, he's training with complete killers. He's training with guys like Chris Curtis. I don't know if he still is, but this was a couple months ago. Chris Curtis, Khamzat Chimaev, Sean Strickland. Like, he's training with really good guys. He took a picture with Khamzat. Looks like it was about 32 weeks ago. He's not even been active on. I don't know what this guy's been up to the last 3 years. Like, do you know why he has not fought in so long?
So he was supposed to fight. Remember, he was supposed to fight Hu Yazong.
Oh yeah,
and they that fight got called off last minute. Then I think they tried to make the fight again, and it got called off again. So like Amedovski was out of the cage for about 2 years. Then he was supposed to fight that bum Hu Yazong, and then that got called off twice. And then now here we are, and he's fighting Joe Holmes. So I don't know. I think it was a COVID related thing why one of them had to pull out, and I believe it was Amedovski. God. Save us, Brady. Yeah. What the hell do we do with this fight other than just say, like, yeah, it probably finishes inside the distance, but laying minus 220 or minus 200 on Joe Holmes here. Oh God, against really an unknown product here in Amedovski. I mean, of course he lost to Jotko. Everybody loses to Jotko, and he got knocked out by a guy that hits like a Mack truck in John Phillips. So what do we know about this guy? It's just a big stay away from me, except for maybe a violent spot.
Yeah, I think violence is the way to go. I think it probably does finish, honestly, in the first round. And both guys have a lot of power. Both guys have a lack of striking defense. Both guys have a lack of gas tank. And then I think Holmes is going to be like levels above Amedovski on the mat. Yeah, I like Holmes, but yeah, laying minus 200 on the guy, no thank you there. He opened up minus 220, actually. He's now minus 192. Amedovski opened up plus 185. He's now plus 167. Over under is probably going to be set at 1.5 rounds. Over 1.5 minus 140. Under 1.5 plus 110. 5 dimes also has the under 2.5, which is minus 175. The over 2.5 plus 145. The fight goes to decision plus 175, and the fight doesn't go to decision is minus 245. I'm probably going to be taking a look at that under 2.5. But yeah, not a fight you probably should be overly invested in. Like I said, probably one of the lower level fights, honestly, of the year.
Yeah, it's up there, dude. I mean, if Hu Yazong Amedovski would have happened,
oh my gosh,
it probably would have been lower level than this, which is almost mathematically impossible. But it is what it is, you guys. This is how the UFC treats us when they gotta. They're like, all right, week off next week. Let's ease them into the week off by giving them a card that's got some truly questionable fights on it.
Yep. Elise Reed, Sam Hughes, Amedovski, Holmes.
Hooper Colares.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, man. I mean, Viana, Ricci, they're two beautiful young ladies. At least we get to see the largest ass in the UFC. On this card. That's something we can hang our hat on. We can set our drink on Parker Porter's ass and just sit back and enjoy this card.
Pound for pound, biggest ass in the UFC, Parker Porter. And how about we talk about it now? Yeah, I saw this fight was announced a couple weeks ago. I was checking Twitter. I could have swore it was a joke. And I kind of just like blew it off like it's a joke. Haha. We see jokes all the time, right? And then a couple weeks later, I see people talking about it, and I thought that was a joke, and I guess this is a real fight, and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe this is a fight because it doesn't make any sense at all. Like, I don't get why this is happening, but hey, it's happening. Almeida coming up to heavyweight to fight Parker Porter. Porter, 37 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach. Almeida, 30 years old, 6'3" with a 79-inch reach. So Almeida's coming up a weight class, but he's going to be the much bigger fighter in terms of height and reach. Almeida is going to have a 3-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage. But when we're talking ass, it's Parker Porter all day. And then Almeida is going to be 7 years younger. So we'll take a look at Parker Porter. He's had a good career so far in the UFC. 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Made his debut short notice against Chris Daukaus. Got knocked out in the first round. No shame in that at all. Decision win against Josh Parisian, looked really good in that fight. Decision win against Chase Sherman, looked really good in that fight. Decision win against Alen Badeau, not look great in that fight, but 3-fight win streak for Parker Porter. And this guy brings stuff to the table we don't see a lot from a lot of heavyweights. This guy brings a ton of volume, and he has cardio. He has solid cardio for heavyweight. So Yeah, I'm actually been pretty impressed with Parker Porter thus far. Jailton Almeida made his debut against that bum Danilo Marquez as a pretty big favorite. There were some question marks about the guy, and honestly, there's still some serious question marks about Jailton Almeida. There's not a ton of footage out there on him, although he does have 17 fights. And I went and watched him. Like, I want to see what this guy's striking looks like. And I went and watched the Contender Series fight. I think it was Bisping saying that Almeida said that he could be a pro boxer if he wanted to. And I'm like, okay, pro box. Let's see what his striking looks like. And then right away he shoots a takedown on the Contender Series. I did not get to see his striking. You go back and watch his other fights, and there's no striking footage out there of Jailton Almeida. Like, what is his striking like? I don't know. He's shooting takedowns right away. He has some good kicks. I saw some good kicks, but that's about it. I saw no boxing at all. So there's just question marks about the striking of Jailton Almeida. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. And I guess my concern here, especially when we're talking minus 800, my concern is what happens if Jailton Almeida comes in here and he's not able to pick up Parker Porter and slam him down and get on top. Like, what happens if he's forced to stand with Parker Porter for an extended period of time? What happens if the size is too much of a discrepancy here? Because Almeida coming up a weight class, what's he going to weigh in at? Say he weighs in, I don't know, 220, 230. And regardless, Parker Porter is still going to be 30 to 40 pounds bigger than him, heavier than him. So, yeah, I mean, after digging in to the fight, I mean, there's no way I can lay minus 800 on Jailton Almeida. Like, there's some good things that Parker Porter brings. Should Jailton Almeida go in here, take him down, and finish him in the first round? Absolutely. But what if he can't get Porter down? Then I don't know. Weezy, this is such a weird match, but it makes no sense. Should be very hilarious, though, right?
Yeah, see, but this is kind of like what's going to happen to Jailton Almeida, because here's what happened, right? He was supposed to fight Maxim Grishin, and Maxim Grishin was on a bender drinking a ton of vodka. The phone rang. He's like, sure, I'll fight Jailton Almeida. And then he woke up. He's like, what the fuck? Did I just agree to fight Jailton Almeida? Call back the UFC. Tell him I'm hurt. So they did that, and Grishin's out. Now he'll take a much smarter fight somewhere down the road. And Parker Porter is probably the only guy that picks up the phone when Mick Maynard starts saying, hey, do you want to fight Jailton Almeida? Hello? I mean, that's what happens, like 6 straight calls. So finally he says, he did the same thing that he did to Mirzakhanov when nobody wants to fight Mirzakhanov. And then he calls up Jared Vandera. He's like, this guy's got an IQ of 66 and he's got a concussion right now. So, he'll accept the fight. Well, this is what happened. Nobody's going to agree to fight this guy Almeida. He looks like a statue of a Greek god. His grappling is sick. What he did to Nasruddinov on the Contender Series was hilarious. This guy Nasruddinov was tying up Russians in a knot in ACA, winning fights, undefeated, finishing all of his wins too. He went through him like a hot knife through butter and made him look silly on the ground. So we've got, obviously 7 years younger, 3 inches taller, 4-inch reach advantage. And then when you look at the experience, Porter's only got 2 more fights and 2 more UFC fights. Jailton has finished 100% of his wins inside the distance. Big surprise, right? Parker Porter, 61% of his wins. And Porter's been finished in 5 of 6 losses, while Jailton has been finished in 1 of 2. So fight doesn't go to decision. Feels like a pretty safe bet here. Porter landing a lot of strikes. You don't see a lot of guys, Brady, and this isn't a 4-fight sample size, landing more than 6 significant strikes a minute. Porter is one of those guys, but he's also absorbing over 6. But it's a lot of volume, 13.42 significant strike attempts per minute, 12.96 attempted against Porter. While for Jailton, he's throwing 6 and his opponents are throwing less than 1. So when you look at like Jailton's social media, one of the things that I've noticed this guy has said a lot on Twitter is that he wants to lead. He wants to be like the all-time takedown leader of the UFC. Like he's saying, I saw some post like where somebody was saying like, this is how many takedowns George St. Pierre had in the UFC. And like Jailton responds going, all right, I could probably get there in about 8 years. It's like, fuck, man, you're chasing George St. Pierre for takedowns? So I don't think that this fight's going to stay standing for very long. I think it's going to get into the grappling. And Jailton's the kind of guy, in my opinion, where he doesn't necessarily need the takedown. He just wants to get it to the grappling. He's going to be way better there. He's so big, so strong, so long that it's probably going to be easy for him to get Parker out of there. But, the size means something. It really does. And Jailton's beating up on 205ers, but will he be able to do it to somebody who's just, built differently in Parker Porter? Look at Almeida's control time numbers, though. 86% of his 2 fights thus far have taken place in control time positions for or against. While for Porter, it's about 30%. So we know where Jailton's most comfortable. And I think he's going to continue to keep the fight there and probably win this fight. But I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know because Jailton's already sitting at -800.
Well, let me ask you this. What happens if somehow, some way, Parker Porter ends up on top of Almeida?
I don't see Almeida moving him. I mean, even with great technique and butterfly hooks, I just don't see how you get that ass off of you. I don't see it happening. And we've seen Parker when he gets on top, it's not like dudes are getting back up.
Oh no, I've seen he's been on top of big heavyweights and they can't get up.
They can't get up, man. It's just he's short and thick, and it's a really hard body type to try to get off of you. So yeah, I mean it could happen, and Jailton might get sloppy going for a takedown here, so he might have to rely on his striking a little bit more. And this is going to be one of those lessons for young fighters. Like, hey, just because you had a fight lined up and your opponent backed out doesn't necessarily mean you got to wait for the heavyweight to pick up the phone here. There's a lot of 205ers who should be willing to take this fight, and I think Jailton is going to find out that he better start waiting a little bit more than just accepting whoever they put in front of him.
Yep, for sure. But yeah, I think Almeida should get him down in the first round and finish him. Almeida opened up as a -300. He is now -800. I think that's going to get wider and wider, and I bet we'll see -1,000 at some point, honestly. Money's pouring in on Almeida. Parker Porter opened up +250. He is currently +500. I guess where my interest is going to go is probably the under 1.5. The reason being is Almeida, in 17 fights, he's actually never won a fight over 1.5 rounds. He's had one fight in 17 fights go over 1.5, and he lost that fight by decision. So I think the under 1.5 is actually at a playable price. Remember the Romanov-Sherman fight where they had the under 1.5 at -300? Like, we knew it's going to finish under 1.5, but we're not paying -300. They have a playable line here. So I know I don't really usually play under 1.5s, but -115 on 5 dimes, -135 on Bet Online. I just don't really see how this fight gets out of the first round if Almeida's having success here.
Yeah, what did you say? The over 1.5 is what?
+105, and the under is -135. This is Bet Online, and then 5 dimes just has it a straight pick, a -115 each way.
Yeah, that under 1.5 is overpriced by 13.5% in comparison to the under 1.5 rate for the long-term divisional hole, which is something like 43.91%. So yeah, it's overpriced because you're paying 57.45%. But when you look at Jailton Almeida being 100% of the time under 1.5, that's where that becomes a makeable bet.
Yep, and I'm kind of surprised looking at the fight doesn't go. I was fully expecting them to just put it at -600 to an unbettable price, which FanDuel probably will. But yeah, 5 dimes has the fight doesn't go at only -270, so that's kind of parlayable.
Yeah, that's 5 dimes though. They always have the best lines. By the time it gets out to the moops like us, Brady, we're going to be paying -500, and they're going to expect us to parlay it. And I'm just going to be putting my finger in there, And you
can't parlay on Bet Online. So
yeah, I know those sons of.
But man, what a fight! What a card! What a card!
What a card is right, dude. What are we doing here? Are we tripping? Am I sleeping right now? Like, my God, man, is the next fight going to be like James Toney against CM Punk?
No, it's actually the rematch: CM Punk, Mike Jackson, the running.
Oh, God, help us!
Could you imagine? Oh my goodness! But no, we actually have a much better fight than that. We have a Chidi and Njokuani going against Duško Todorović. This should be a fun fight. We have Njokuani, who is 33 years old, 6'3" with an 80-inch reach. Duško, 27 years old, 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. My goodness, yeah, Chidi's gonna be 6 years older, but 2-inch height advantage, but a massive 6-inch reach advantage for Chidi. We take a look at the last few fights. Chidi is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Made his debut against Marc-Andre Barrio, ran through him in like 15 seconds. Prior to that, had a very good win on the Contender Series against Mario Souza, getting a late finish in that 3rd round. Duško, 3-2 in his last 5 fights, had a decision win against Teddy Ash, had a knockout win against Daquan Townsend, a knockout loss against Punahele Soriano, a decision loss to Gregory Rodriguez, and then a knockout win against Maki Batolia. This should be a good one here. You take a look at Chidi, like this guy is 33 years old, but this is the best he's ever looked, and he's been looking very, very good as of late. Like you go back and watch some of his fights before like 2019, and he's getting taken down easily. He's getting knocked out, he's getting submitted, but this is just a completely different guy. Like against Mario Souza, I didn't have a bet in that fight, but I kind of expected Souza to be able to get him down and probably sub him at some point, but it was actually Chidi who was able to get on top. He reversed him at some point, and just his grounded pounds vicious on the feet. He hits very hard, and he's very technical. I like this guy quite a bit. Going against Duško here, who this guy has a ton of talent. He's very young, but the one hole in his game is going to be that striking defense. Some of the worst striking defense you'll see. He kind of has that like Ian Gary, tall man's defense with the hands down, the chin up, backing up. But even worse, I mean, the Soriano fight was just hard to watch. He got dropped like 3 or 4 times in that fight. And what he was doing was, his hands were down to his sides. He was backing up, his chin up in the air, and he was kind of using his head movement, which he has good head movement. But, at this level, you don't want to be doing that all that much, especially against guys that hit hard like a Soriano, like a Rodriguez, like a Chidi. So I think that's something he really needs to fix. And if not, he's probably going to get knocked out here against Chidi, who hits like an absolute truck. But yeah, it should be a fun fight here. Weezy, what do you think about this one? I think you're muted.
Yeah, Chidi's much bigger, 16 more professional fights, about 170 more minutes in the pro cage, and about 8 more years as a pro. So very, very experienced is Chidi here. And but it's Todorović with more UFC level fights, but that doesn't mean much because Chidi was fighting high level competition in Bellator, while Todorović was fighting lower level regional scene competition. But yeah, Todorović more experience at the UFC level here with 36 more minutes in the UFC cage and 3 more UFC fights. Chidi finishing 2/3 of his 21 wins inside the distance. That would be 13 by knockout, 1 by submission, but he's been finished in 6 of his 7 losses. While for Todorović, we've got a 91% finish rate in his 11 wins, so 10 wins inside the distance, and he's been knocked out in 1 of his 2 losses. So 9 combined losses here, Brady, 7 of them inside the distance. So that really gets me thinking quite a bit about the fight doesn't go to decision here. And even in the combined wins for these guys, 4 of their 5 combined UFC wins have come inside the distance. So very impressive. Chidi's striking numbers are like video game numbers here in these 2 fights, landing 6.4, absorbing less than 1.3, almost 70% striking defense, and a sniper like 86.36% striking accuracy. Todorović is landing 5.8 and only absorbing 4.96 significant strikes a minute. Decent striking accuracy at 54.5% and 49% striking defense, and he's been knocked down twice in 5 fights. Todorović, very active with the wrestling attempts, but not great at getting the fight to the ground. 2 of 21 on takedown attempts, less than 10%. Most of that was in the Teddy Ash fight. I think he attempted 18 or 19 takedowns in that fight and got none of them. He's got 0.63 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's out-controlling his opponents 16.8% to 5%. But, he's tried 15 more takedowns than his opponents have. Njokuani, even though his opponents have attempted 4 takedowns against him and Chidi's only attempted 1, he's out-controlling his opponents 58% to 6%. So very impressive there. Getting, especially the way he drowned Sosa, a really good Brazilian jiu-jitsu player on the ground. We saw Chidi just work him with the ground and pound. The strength of schedule leans Chidi in the UFC, but it just leans Chidi overall. So Chidi probably going to be the better striker here. He can hang on the mat with Duško. Better strength of schedule. He's the bigger man. He's the more experienced man. It's just Todorović is a better finisher and probably a little more durable, as we've seen Chidi finished in 6 of his 7 losses. So, I do like Chidi here quite a bit. I think Duško does better when he can bring his complete mixed martial arts game, show off the striking and the grappling, and kind of find the weakness of his opponent. But Chidi has been showing a really well-rounded game recently. I don't think Duško is going to really be able to exploit him anywhere and be much better than him anywhere. So I'm leaning Chidi and Njokuani in this spot, and I think fight doesn't go to decision when you've got 7 of 9 combined losses coming inside the distance, and you've got a guy in Todorović who's finished more than 90% of his 11 wins, and a guy in Njokuani who's finished 14 of 21 wins. I think it's a really good violence spot here.
Yeah, I do as well. Looks like they have the fight doesn't go to decision at -185. The fight goes to decision is +145. Yeah, pretty solid. Both guys very good finishers. Both guys very dangerous, and then both guys obviously can get finished a ton. How many times did Chidi get finished?
He's been finished by submission 3 times and knockout 3 times, and that's in 7 losses.
Yeah, see, that was I like Chidi here a lot, but that was like the one thing where I'm like, he's looked, really good as of late, but what's his durability like? What happens? Duško's a black belt in his own right. I guess the durability would be my one concern for Chidi, because Duško can hit hard himself. But by the way, did you see on Best Fight Odds they named Duško Todorović Durko Todorović?
So bad, man. Do you remember when we had the Gortez versus Gortez fight, a couple of weeks ago? What are they doing? And is at least the main event on the same card as the rest of the fights this week? Did they actually get all the where it's not down in future events this week at least?
They finally got it. We don't have to scroll this week.
My word. Thank God for small favors, I guess, right? But we'll take it. Yeah, violence in this spot and the Njokuani side are sticking out. What's the line, the money line on Njokuani?
Yeah, so we opened up -125, which I would have loved that. And now he's now -180. Durko Todorović open up +105. He's now +155.
Okay. Yeah, it's not too much to pay, but you're taking the guy that's 6 years older here, and Todorović is probably the better grappler, but this is a good fight. I'm looking forward to this one.
Oh yeah, probably one of the better fights on the card, honestly. But we will keep moving along. It looks like we have 1, 2, 3 fights left. So if you all can please take your time and leave a like, subscribe to the channel. It's much appreciated. Me and Weezy go live every Sunday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern time. And then also, Weezy, we do have the stats down below in a link. If you guys want to check out the stats, they are linked below in the description there. All right. So moving on, we have Eryk Anders going against Jun-yong Park. We have Eryk Anders, 35 years old, 6'1", with a 75-inch reach. Jun-yong Park, 31 years old, 5'10", with a 73-inch reach. Park, 4 years younger, but it's going to be Anders with a 2-inch reach advantage and a 3-inch height advantage. Anders is 2-1 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Jerome Mearshart, a decision loss against Krzysztof Jotko, a no contest against Darren Stewart, and then a decision win against Darren Stewart, and a submission loss against Andre Muniz. As far as Jun-yong Park, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Submission loss to Anthony Hernandez. Decision win against Marc-Andre Barriault. Decision win against John Phillips. Decision win against Stefan Njokuani. And then a knockout loss against Greg Rodriguez. Should be a good one here. Weezy, what do you think about this one?
For sure. Great fight. So Anders, 4 more professional fights, about 50 more minutes in the pro cage, but it's Jun-yong Park who's been a pro fighter for about 2 years more than Eryk. Eryk, though, 8 more UFC level fights and almost 100 more minutes in the UFC cage. So better high level experience here for Anders. 64% finish rate for Anders, 61% finish rate for Park. Anders very durable and finishing 2 of 6 losses, while for Park it's been 3 of 5 losses. Anders is absorbing about 0.75 more significant strikes per minute than he lands, and his opponents are throwing about 1.4 more significant strike attempts per minute. Eryk's got good power, though. He's landed 6 knockdowns in 13 fights. That's 0.57 knockdowns per 15 minutes. And he's been knocked down 4 times in 13 fights, getting knocked down 0.38 times for 15 minutes. Jun-yong Park probably the better distance boxer here, as he throws about 1.6 more significant strike attempts per minute than his opponents do, and he's landing about 0.7, 0.8 more significant strikes per minute than his opponents do. But he has not landed a knockdown yet in the UFC, and he's never been knocked down. They call him the Iron Turtle because he's very durable and because he can take a punch. What I think this fight comes down to is who wins minutes on the ground, who wins the control time positions. You see here that Park has done really well with his takedowns, getting 11 of 19, 58% takedown accuracy, averaging 2.62 per 15 minutes, and controlling his opponents 33.75% of the time, while only yielding 13.6% control time. So he's been very efficient. He's only gotten 2 more takedowns than his opponents, but he's still out-controlling his opponents at like a 2.5 to 1 ratio. Anders has attempted 12 more takedowns than his opponents, and he's gotten 6 more takedowns, but he's also out-controlling his opponents at about a 2.5 to 1 ratio here. But the difference is that Eryk Anders is showing about 75% takedown defense, and Jun-yong Park is showing 47% takedown defense. When we look at the strength of schedule numbers here, it's Anders. He's fought the better brand of competition overall, and his wins are slightly better, although neither one of these guys is showing fantastic wins yet. And it's Anders who's losing to the better brand of competition. But if we go to the advanced stats here, there was something I dug into here. As I saw this fight last night and I saw the line, I said to myself, this line looks off. So if we go to the advanced stats and we look at Jun-yong Park's losses against Gregory Rodriguez and Anthony Hernandez, right? In those 2 fights, we see that he's been finished in both of those fights. He got 29 seconds of control time against Rodriguez and gave up 200. And he got 16 seconds of control time against Hernandez and gave up 272. So in the 2 fights that he's lost the control time positions, and he didn't attempt any takedowns. In the fights that he's won, he's 11 of 19 on takedowns. He got 229 seconds of control time against Njokuani, 791 against Phillips, and 208 seconds against Barrio. So he's 0-2 when he loses the control time positions, and he's 3-0 when he wins the control time positions. And in those 2 losses, he was taken down 8 times on 13 attempts. So I think that this will be close on the feet. Anders is going to be the bigger dude, the longer dude, and the heavier hitting dude. But it's going to be Park who's going to be faster and the more crisp boxer. But I really do believe if Anders wants to use his size and strength in order to try to get Park up against the cage and win minutes there, that it's absolutely a wide open scenario for him. And both of these guys have been really good at out-controlling their opponents. If you look at the losses for Anders, they're to Muniz, they're to Jotko, to Roundtree Jr., to Theodoro, and to Santos. So, and also to Lyoto Machida. So the Machida fight was very close, could have went either way. But Santos and Roundtree are both bangers. And then Theodoro, Jotko, and Muniz are pure grapplers. But like when you see, the Darren Stewart types, the Mearshart types, the Moreira types, Tim Williams, Marcus Perez, Rafael Natal, I think those wins kind of fit into the Jun-yong Park type of opponent here, where he can win the control time positions. He can make this a greasy fight, use his size, use his athletic ability. And now that he's training over at Fight Ready, we know that the cage wrestling is really improved, and probably the willingness to go to the wrestling is improved. So I think the door is wide open here for Eryk Anders to make this a greasy fight, win minutes on the cage, win minutes on the ground, and land big strikes on the feet. I'm picking him to win this fight, and I've got a bet on him, Brady.
Sounds good. Looks like you beat some line movement as well, because Anders opened up -110 pick'em, and I believe you got him plus 205 last night, right?
Yeah, I got him at plus 205. I saw that line. It just didn't make any sense. So, I mean, it's only a half unit, but yeah, that's where I got him.
Yeah, now it's plus 190. Park opened up minus 110. He's now minus 225. Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a close fight. It's going to be a greasy fight. And just, yeah, the line makes no sense. Park minus 225, minus 200. I feel like it's going to be a lot closer than that plays out. Somebody in the chat asked if there was value on the fight doesn't go to decision at plus 135. What I'll say is, like, both these guys are tough as nails. Do you think there's any value on that fight doesn't go?
So, yeah, 5 of their 11 losses have come inside the distance as pros, and 4 of 8 losses have come inside the distance in the UFC. So what's odd is that they're not finishing well. They're only 3 of their 9 combined wins have come inside the distance, but 4 of 8 losses. So on the aggregate, 7 of their 18 combined fights at the UFC level have finished inside the distance. That's only 39%. Middleweight fights are finishing at 55% on the aggregate, so that's 16% worse than the finish rate of the division, and we're overpaying 3.7% on the fight doesn't go to decision at plus 135, surprisingly. But that is 12% better than the 55% of the divisional finish rate here. So it depends on whether you're looking at the long-term benchmarks or the individual fighter performances here. Based on the benchmarks, Brady, the under is the bet. Based on the 2 fighters' performances at the UFC level, you're probably betting fight goes to decision. It depends on what kind of a gambler you are and which information you find to be more predictive.
Yeah, and those finished losses they have, how many of those are by knockout and how many of those are by sub?
So the losses at the UFC level, 1 of Park's losses by knockout, 1 by sub, and it's the same thing for Anders, 1 by knockout, 1 by sub.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. So yeah, the fight doesn't go plus 135. The fight goes minus 175. Over 2.5 opened up minus 155. I got smashed, and now minus 200. Under 2.5 is plus 160. Yeah, so probably staying away from this one, but yeah, it's a clear dog or pass. Like, the line just makes no sense. As far as the time props, I say it goes to decision. I say it goes over, just due to both guys, crazy durability. Iron Turtle, Eryk Anders. Remember the Roundtree fight where Roundtree couldn't get him out of there after knocking him down like 4 times. So I like the over, but it got smashed. I liked it a lot at minus 155, but kind of missed out on that boat.
Yeah, this is a good fight. I can't wait for this one, but I'm over the moon to get Anders at plus 205 here. I think he should probably finish maybe plus 120 or something. I think where they open the line is a lot more accurate, and they opened it at minus 110.
Yeah, it's a close fight for sure. But we'll move on to the co-main event. And we have Santiago Ponzinibbio going against Michel Pereira. Should be a really fun fight here. We have Ponzinibbio, 35 years old, 6 foot with a 76-inch reach. Pereira, 28 years old, 6'1", with a 73-inch reach. So Pereira, 7 years younger, 1 inch height advantage. Ponzinibbio, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Decision loss to Jeff Neal, very close fight there. Decision win against Miguel Baeza, looked really good in that fight. Came back from a long layoff. He got knocked out by the Leech in the, I think, 2nd round or 1st round. Knockout win against Neil Magny, and the decision win against Mike Perry. As far as Michel Pereira, that DQ loss against Diego Sanchez, which completely screwed everybody on DraftKings that night. Zelim Imadaev submission. Chaos Williams decision win. Nico Price decision win. And then Andre Fiallo decision win, which is aging very, very well there. So yeah, this should be a really close and competitive fight. I like both guys. I'm telling you, Ponzinibbio, who is getting up there in age, now 35 years old. Yeah, Pereira, who's 28 years old with 40 fights. That's crazy to me. But yeah, both guys very good strikers. Both guys have their own striking style. We don't really have to worry that much anymore. You don't got to believe about the fight IQ of Michel Pereira. In his early UFC days, I mean, this guy would come out there with a 20-minute dance routine, doing backflips before the fight even started. Now 30 seconds in against Tristan Connolly, whereas nowadays you see him fighting a lot smarter, and you do like to see that because he's a really good fighter. Like, if he has some solid fight IQ, he's going to win a lot of fights, and he has, and his fight IQ is getting much better. Ponzinibbio, this guy's a very good striker. His hands are very fast. I love his combinations. And what I like about him in this fight is going to be the pressure. I remember the Baeza fight. As soon as the fight started, he pressured, and he did that for 15 minutes straight, and he kind of broke Baeza. Baeza slowed down as the fight went on, and Ponzinibbio did not slow down. So, yeah, it should be a fun fight here. Weezy, both guys really good strikers. Kind of a high-level fight here.
very high level fight. And the way Pereira's been fighting, I mean, you look at that 5-2 record, and then you remember the Diego Sanchez fight, and you're like, oh my God, he kicked the shit out of him for 12 and a half minutes and then landed a dumbass knee, and Sanchez took the veteran's way out. Very smart move by Sanchez. But Pereira's looked very good. One of the more impressive things about Pereira is that he's been fighting since he's been 18 years old, and he's got 40 fights in just over 10 years. So you want to talk about, the definition of an active fighter. And, you look at that record, 27-11, and you're like, man, 11 losses. But a lot of those came early in his career, and it's because the dude was fighting like every other month. So, I mean, I don't even know if he was getting full training camps in or what, but the guy clearly loved to fight and was very active. But it's Ponzinibbio, who's more experienced at the UFC level, but he's got 40 more minutes as a pro in the pro cage. He's got about 3.5 more years as a professional mixed martial artist in comparison to Pereira. And he's got 50 more minutes in the UFC cage and 7 more UFC fights. Both of these guys finish more fights by knockout than they do by submission. Ponzinibbio, 21 of 28 wins coming inside the distance, 75%. And for Pereira, it's 63% of the 27 wins that he's had that have come inside the distance. Ponzinibbio knocked out in 3 of 5 losses. Pereira finished in 2 of 11 losses. So that is 5 of 16 losses combined for these guys who finished inside the distance. Ponzinibbio lands about a quarter more strikes per minute than he absorbs, and he throws almost the same amount of volume that his opponents do. 40% striking accuracy, 9 knockdowns in 14 fights. So the dude's got a ton of power. And showing 62% striking defense, and he's been knocked down 3 times in 14 fights. Pereira, really nice striking ratios, landing 1.5 more significant strikes per minute than he absorbs, throwing a half more significant strike attempts per minute than his opponents do, 55% striking accuracy, landing a knockdown 0.33 times per 15 minutes, and he's never been knocked down in 7 fights at the UFC level. Ponzinibbio, you look at the grappling numbers, right, and you see 5% control time for, 7% control time against. So what that tells you is that 88% of this dude's 146 minutes in the pro cage have taken place at striking range. So this guy, even though you can take him down, he's only got 60% takedown defense. His get-up game is excellent, and he excels at keeping fights where he wants them, which is in the stand-up. Pereira, 10% control time for, just a little over 10% control time against, 100% takedown defense. But I don't think that really comes into play in this particular fight because Ponzinibbio has only attempted 15 takedowns in 14 fights, and he's only gotten 5 of them. So he's not an active wrestler, and he's not going to try to wrestle to win minutes. When we look at the strength of schedule, it's Ponzinibbio. He's fought the better level of competition overall and the more experienced fighters. He's got better win-loss ratio wins and more experienced wins as well. And the losses are a little bit better, although Pereira's losses have come to a little more experienced competition, probably because of the Diego Sanchez loss. You mentioned, I think, what the key to this fight is going to be. It's going to be pressure. Santiago, while he has a 73-inch reach, just like Pereira does, when it says Santiago is 6 feet and Pereira is 6'1", I get the impression that Pereira is a little bit taller than him and is going to be the much longer fighter here. So he's going to need to close that distance. So I think that pressure is going to be absolutely key for Ponzinibbio. And the low leg kicks, he loves to spam those low leg kicks. And if he lands a few of those on Pereira, that's going to be able to reduce the amount of movement that Pereira is able to utilize as he dances around the outside of the cage. And his opponents recently, Chaos Williams, Nico Price, Andre Fiallo, he's seen a lot of pressure. So I kind of feel like this is a great fight in that, Pereira is going to see a similar game plan to what he's been seeing. I mean, if you think about Santiago Ponzinibbio, one of the best comparisons for him right now in this division is Fiallo. Walk forward, doesn't grapple, hits hard, and is really just trying to take your head off. That's what Ponzinibbio does. So great fight. I think Ponzinibbio's pressure and durability is going to be key here. And I think that he will land more strikes and win a decision against Michel Pereira.
Sounds good. Yeah, Ponzinibbio is like a under Fiallo, but with cardio, and that's pretty good. And yeah, that makes sense. Like Fiallo had success early on against Pereira. I think he even won the first round against Pereira, but as the fight went on, Fiallo did take that fight on short notice. He did slow down, but yeah, Ponzi's not slowing down. I think it's gonna be Pereira's the one that's gonna slow down. So we'll take a look at the line here. We have Michel Pereira open up plus 130, is now minus 118. Ponzinibbio open up minus 150, is currently minus 102. So yeah, Ponzi, slight dog money there on DraftKings. He's plus money. Yeah, it's a close fight. Any thoughts on line here, Weezy?
I like Ponzinibbio here, but Pereira is somebody that I just don't, because when he first came in, it was easy to think this guy's a clown. He's just an entertainer. He's out there doing backflips and dumb shit. But you've watched him fight recently, and he's proven to be a really good minute winner and a very smart fighter. He's winning minutes with his wrestling when he gets the chance. He's getting his takedowns at 55% clip and averaging 1.84 takedowns per 15 minutes. Look, if he hadn't have been smart enough to go to the grappling in the second and the third rounds against Chaos Williams, he would have lost that fight. So he's starting to show a really complete game, being able to mix in wrestling in order to win minutes, managing his volume and his explosive strikes in a way that allow him to be able to go a full 3 rounds and not gas out at the end of fights. I'm very impressed with both of these guys, and I like the fact that Pereira is 7 years younger and has 7 more pro fights than Ponzinibbio does, and that he fights 4 times a year, and that he manages to make 171 pounds every damn time with very little problem, despite the fact that he's huge. So even though I'm leaning Ponzinibbio here, I don't know if I'm going to be betting this fight, but the over seems very interesting to me.
So the over is set at, it's going to be 2.5. The over 2.5 is minus 170, and the under 2.5 is plus 140. The fight goes to decision is minus 150, and the fight doesn't go to decision is plus 110.
Fight doesn't go plus 1. Yeah, that's not bad for the fight goes. I think that's a decent price because 50% of welterweight fights go to decision. So it's not as big of a finish rate as you might think here. So when you're paying minus 140, you're overpaying a little bit based on the divisional finish rate. But these guys, we've got 5 wins inside the distance for Pons, 2 for Pereira. So that's 7 out of 15 of their wins are inside the distance, but 2 out of 6 losses. So, I do believe that both of these guys are durable enough to go the full 15. I think it's going to be a great fight.
Yeah, I think so as well. Both guys very durable, and I do agree it's going to be a very, very good fight. But we have the main event to talk about, Weezy. We have never thought I'd see something like this, but we have Holly Holm going against Ketlen Vieira. Doesn't get much better than this. We have Holly Holm, 40 years old, 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. Vieira, 30 years old, 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. Vieira, 10 years younger, and it's going to be Holly Holm with a 1-inch reach advantage. Yeah, Holly Holm, 40 years old, and she's turning 41 in a couple months here. So, that's kind of concerning, but, I really do like this fight for, she's 3-2 in her last 5 fights. You take a look at her losses. Cyborg, 5 fights ago, Amanda Nunes, and you go back, even further, fighters like Miesha Tate, GDR, like when Holly Holm loses, she loses to the absolute best of the best. And I just don't know if Vieira fits that, into like the Amanda Nunes Cyborg category really at all. But, Vieira is going to have that age advantage there, and Vieira did look solid in the last fight against Miesha Tate. I actually liked Vieira's game plan in that fight. So her coaches kept telling her to not grapple, which I thought was very smart. It was a 5-round fight, and if she was to grapple, first of all, that's where Miesha Tate wanted. Second of all, her gas tank has looked bad at times. Keep it on the feet. Don't waste your energy getting the fight down to the mat. So I thought it was a great game plan and a great fight for Ketlen Vieira. But, it's going to be a pretty big step up in competition here against Holly Holm. Main event, can't believe it. But yeah, I feel like it's a good spot for Holly Holm here. Weezy, what do you think?
Yeah, so let me just name the women that have beaten her, right? Holly Holm's losses come to a 14-2 Amanda Nunes, a 6-1 Chris Cyborg, a 7-2 Jermaine Durandamy, and that fight was razor close. 11-2 Valentina Shevchenko, and a 6-5 Miesha Tate, but the 2016 version of Miesha Tate. So she's basically only lost to women who have worn gold around their waist. Ever. That's it. And I mean, the wins over Irene Aldana, over Raquel Pennington twice, Megan Anderson, Betch Correa, Ronda Rousey, Marion Renault. So she's really beating the highest level of competition here. And there's some interesting stats here with Holm. You know, she's done a really good job keeping fights on the feet. She doesn't get wrestled a whole ton, but she's stopped 20 of the 26 takedown attempts against her, and she's only given up 5.3% control time thus far in her UFC career. So that's just about 10 minutes of control time out of 204 that Holly Holm has yielded. And this is a woman with a boxing background. So you would think that she would give up a lot more control time than that, but she doesn't. And so this is why this is an interesting stylistic matchup here, because Holly Holm should be better on the feet. She throws more volume than her opponents. She lands more significant strikes than her opponents. Ketlen throws less volume than her opponents, and she absorbs one more significant strike per minute on the feet than she does land. So Holm more defensively responsible, Holm less chinny, and Holm has gotten 11 takedowns in 12 fights, while Ketlen's gotten 13 and 8. So it's not like Ketlen's been that much better of a wrestler. Ketlen out-controlling her opponents at about a 3.5 to 1 ratio, very good. But guess what? Holly Holm's doing the same thing. She's out-controlling her opponents at a 3.5 to 1 ratio, but 76% of her fights are taking place at standing range, while for Ketlen Vieira, it's about 56. So you look at the strength of schedule here, and it's all Holm, right? Better overall competition and more experience. Better wins and more experience. Way better losses, more experience. Holm, the better striker. Holm, the more experienced mixed martial artist here. Holm, the better finisher. Vieira, the better grappler. Vieira, more handsome, probably. Vieira definitely looks a lot more like Lorenzo Lamas from the Renegade days than Holly Holm ever will. But yeah, I think what Ketlen does best when she's winning fights, Brady, is winning grappling exchanges. For her to initiate grappling exchanges against Holly Holm would be very dangerous, in my opinion, because it's a 5-round fight. And if you tire yourself out early trying to go after takedowns here, I think Holly's going to have a lot of success on the feet here and cruise to a victory. So what's Ketlen's game plan going to be so that she doesn't gas out too early, but doesn't also have to voluntarily, exchange striking with Holm early too much to lose minutes there? It seems like it's a very difficult matchup here for Ketlen, but she's 10 years younger, and that is very important.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the one thing I'm worried about is Holly Holm, 40 years old, about to be 41. Like, that doesn't really make me want to lay minus 230 on Hunter. But yeah, stylistically, like, what is Vieira's game plan? Is she going to go out here and strike with Holly Holm for 5 rounds? No. Is she going to implement a wrestling heavy game plan for 5 rounds? No. I don't know. I think it's a great spot for Holm, but yeah, 41-year-old Holly Holm, I'm just not sure. But yeah, she looked good in her last fight, though, against Aldana. How long ago was that fight? It feels like that fight was a while ago.
It was October 3rd, 2020. So it's been a year and a half since we've seen her. She was supposed to fight. She was supposed to fight some months back. Holly had a fight because she was in my database, despite the fact that she shouldn't have been because she hadn't fought since 2020. So Holly had a fight against Juliana Pena, canceled in May of 2021, and then another fight against Norma Dumont, canceled in October of 2021. So yeah, a year and a half off, 40 years old. What's left in the tank for Holly Holm? We're gonna have to wait until Saturday to find out. But Ketlen Vieira is a nice little underdog here, but I still think it's Holly's fight.
Yeah, unless Holly comes out and looks old or something. But yeah, I think it's a good spot for Holm. But yeah, the layoff, that's concerning, especially at this age. That's very concerning. And then, of course, yeah, now almost 41. I think she turns 41 in October.
Yeah, October. Yep.
October. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Holly Holm, big favorite, opened up -210. She's now -225. Ketlen Vieira, aka Lorenzo Lamas. And by the way, you're right. They look exactly the same. I looked up a picture of Lorenzo Lamas Renegade, like twins.
It's
and
unbelievable, isn't it?
It is. I'm maybe it is Lorenzo Lamas because they look exactly the same.
Dude, there was some picture floating around of Ketlen Vieira wearing like this leather motorcycle jacket. And when I saw that, I was like, holy shit, is that Lorenzo Lamas? And then I immediately went and I looked at the Lorenzo Lamas, like picture from Renegade. And I was like, that was such a killer pull by me. I rarely pump myself up after making a great sub reference like that. But that was one that even impressed me. And I was like, man, Weezy, you're on fire right now.
It is very impressive. I totally agree with it. So yeah, the over, I think over 1.5 -700, over 2.5 -385, over 3.5 -285. You're laying a lot of chalk here, but I think this fight does probably go to decision. That's -230. I guess something I'd be interested in is like maybe the Holly Holm 4 or 5 decision. And we'll talk about all these props tomorrow on MMA Engine for the MMA Engine deep dive, main event deep dive. We'll talk about all the props there. They're not out yet, but yeah, Holly Holm by decision +100. Holm 4 or 5 decision I think is interesting, but just -230. I just don't know if I'll get there. I think there's other ways to play it rather than laying -230 on 40-year-old Holly Holm.
Yeah, it's women's MMA. That's another thing right there. And yeah, she's been away for 1.5 years. She's 40. And you just don't know what's. At this point, is she like, oh, if I win this one, I'm getting a title shot? I mean, I don't think so, right? She hasn't fought in 1.5 years. So, yeah, this is a perfect fight to try to look what the best win conditions of either fighter are here and try to put down less money to win the same amount of money.
Yep, we're just not betting at all.
Oh, yeah, that's another great option in my opinion. The bookies have to make lines. We don't have to bet them.
We absolutely don't. And somebody got really mad at me the other day for saying I'm passing on a lot of fights from last night. And yeah, last night's card was sketchy. This card might be even like sketchier from like a money line standpoint. But I think from a violence standpoint, there's a lot of spots that really stick out.
Yeah, and that's the thing that people don't realize is we do make predictions on every fight, but it doesn't mean we're going to bet it. I had a great night last night, but my picks on Tapology, I was 4 wins and 7 losses. Sometimes you're going to get it wrong, but the important thing is to find the spots that you think are mispriced and hit them bigger, and then not be overconfident about juiced lines where you're paying 2 units to win 1. You got to be very confident in those spots. And sometimes the best thing to do is just to pass.
Sometimes a pass is better than a win. Like there's fights I'm watching where I'm like, this feels better than a win. Like I didn't bet on, say like a Gina Mazzani or like a Michael Johnson. Like sometimes passing feels better than winning.
Yeah. And I mean, I was watching that Johnson Patrick fight and I was like, man, I mean, either one of these guys, I was saying to myself, they're both kind of live, and up until Johnson put him down, they both looked kind of live. And I was like watching that going, I'm so glad I didn't bet on this. I'm so glad I didn't have my money anywhere near it, and yeah, I probably would have picked Patrick had I given a shit, but I didn't, and I wasn't betting it, so I didn't care.
Exactly, I like it, but yeah, Weezy, yeah, I mean it's a good card, but yeah, lots of sketchy fights, but should be fun as always. Weezy, let the people know where they can find you, what you have going on throughout the week. I know you have a lot going on, so let them know.
Yeah, so Tuesday night on my channel, Uncle Weezy, I'll be doing a full card breakdown, just the tip with Uncle Weezy. Break down all 11 fights from a tape study and statistical perspective. Finish with a greasy 4-leg parlay. The greasy 4-legger I gave out last week cashed at plus 987. And then we'll finish with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Hopefully we stay on the heater that we're on. 13 out of the last 14 ass shavings of the week have cashed. So you can find me on the MMA Engine YouTube channel tomorrow night for a main event deep dive with DFS by the numbers, and on Thursday nights for probability with DFS by the numbers, where we're giving you a data-driven look into the over/under and fight goes and fight doesn't go bets on all 11 fights. So And then you can find me on Pub Sports Radio every Sunday for Stat Diggers and every Wednesday for the DFS show. I mean, I'm starting to realize that I work way too much, but that's all right, man. When you love your job, it's good stuff. So, yeah, you guys, you can find me in all of those places. Thank you for spending your Sunday night with us here on Pub Sports Radio, and let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC Vegas 55, Holm versus Lamas.
Let's do it. Yeah, I can't wait to see the ass shaving of the week's going to be. If it's Almeida shaving Parker's ass, that could be the biggest ass shaving ever.
Yeah, there might be like they might have to say the event is over because there's so much hair in the cage from that gigantic ass that we couldn't ask Njokuani and Todorović to go out there and risk their health on this substandard canvas. So, that would really be something. But I'm not going to be giving you guys Jailton because he's minus 800 already.
Yeah, and I like how you do. I like how you do that. You like Torres last night. He was like minus 115, minus 120.
Yeah, minus 130-ish when I gave it out, something like that. So I like to give you something where I feel like the read is good and there's some good value,
Yeah, for sure. So tune into Weezy stuff. He does a great job. You can tune into my stuff. Breakdown videos should be out tomorrow. Live streams Friday and Saturday on my channel. Doing a lot of content on MMA Engine. Yeah, like Weezy said, check out Probability Thursday. It's probably becoming like one of my favorite show, and we've been killing it. The model's been killing it, and just hoping to keep making a lot of money off of that. So yeah, check that out. And Weezy, any other final thoughts before we head out of here?
No, I think I'm good, man. Let's just keep this winning streak going. We're both having great years. We're both doing a nice job of managing our bankrolls and just kind of stacking these cash tickets like flapjacks. And let's keep it going, man. Let's keep making smart bets. Let's keep putting the work in, keep doing the research, and keep making money.
Let's do it. All right, guys. We'll head out of here. Leave a like on your way out. Subscribe. All the good stuff. We'll talk to you soon. And good luck for UFC Vegas 55. Let's end May out on a very high note. See you guys.